The Kansas City Chiefs, stop me if you've heard this one, are going to the Super Bowl. It just never gets old. But there are a lot of reasons why. In an article titled 10 Reasons Why the Chiefs Reached 2025 Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes, Steve Spagnuolo, and company are inevitable, subtitled Kansas City is aiming for a three-peat from CBS Sports by Cody Benjamin. We have 10 reasons, but I decided to pull out just 5 of those reasons as not to usurp everything that was written in this article. But I think that these are 5 of the better points, and I have some backing up of the points that Cody has made here. Now, the article itself begins as such. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl again. Sorry, I don't know if I got the pronunciation on that right. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl again. Is this thing on? The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl again. 1 year after claiming their second straight Lombardi trophy, the reigning Super Bowl champions punched their ticket to Super Bowl licks by edging the Super Bowl licks by edging the Bills. In Sunday's AFC Championship, which means Patrick Mahomes and company will have a chance to secure a record three-peat by squaring off with the Philadelphia Eagles in a rematch of Super Bowl Levi'i. How exactly did they get here? Here are 10 of the top reasons the Chiefs are Super Bowl bound yet again, starting with number 2. Patrick Mahomes wins on the margins. A big play machine when he burst onto the NFL scene, Mahomes has since mastered a very different type of role, albeit with his signature backyard-esque mobility, the methodical finisher. Different type of role? I'm not sure. Okay. Technically, that's a complete sentence. The guy hasn't posted a bunch of gaudy stat lines for close to 2 years and counting. Okay, so close to 2 years and counting. If it's close to 2 years, it's not 2 years and counting. Anyway, but he's on point, especially as a scrambler when the game is tight. Speaking of scrambling, Sunday was no exception as he finished with 2 rushing scores. Now, what I have done here is brought in a couple of different snapshots from Patrick Mahomes' statistics. You will notice all of these incredible stats. Though he has been in the league just 8 years, is a starter for just 7 of those seasons, 32,352 yards, 245 touchdowns. Incredible statistics there, but the number I want to concentrate on is right here. His record as a starter, I do contend that wins are a QB statistic. 89 and 23. 89 and 23. So, by all accounts, Patrick Mahomes is likely to win his 100th game in the NFL next season. We see that he averages probably 12 wins a year. He has one season at 10 wins. He has one season at 11 wins. He has 2 seasons at 12 wins. So he averages more than 12 wins a season because he has 2 seasons at 14 wins and a 15-win season. So probably he is likely to end next season with more than 100 wins. Here, right down here. So this is this season's playoff record. Obviously, winning against the Houston Texans and the Buffalo Bills here. 17-3 all time in the playoffs. Here's the So the reason I bring this up, Patrick Mahomes wins on the margins. Patrick Mahomes wins all the time. Patrick Mahomes wins all the time. So if we zoom out just a little bit, Patrick Mahomes has a .794 winning percentage in the regular season. Patrick Mahomes is somehow better in the playoffs with an .850 winning percentage. absolutely mind-boggling. Ask anyone what that could possibly mean, and no one will tell you except that during this time, during the regular season, they're practicing for this time, the postseason. Number 4, their weapons are interchangeable. Travis Kelce remains a big name at tight end, but the Chiefs' offense mostly functions for its depth and versatility as opposed to its sheer star power. Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco are more rugged ball carriers at this juncture, while Xavier Worthy and Marquise Brown offer speedy complements to possession wideouts like Smith-Schuster and DeAndre Hopkins. The sum is greater than the parts here. So there's a lot of things that this means. If you want to look at the organization just as a team, what this is indicative of is a second or third stage franchise or second or third stage winning team. You have had to win, change your team because of the salary cap and players moving on, and then change your team again because of the salary cap and players moving on. How many of these players is Patrick Mahomes throwing to that he was throwing to in 2018? Well, 2. Travis Kelce and Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt missed a few years in the middle, but here's the other thing that this says about that. Brett Veach is limited each season in the NFL draft by the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs are simply so good. Brett Veach is forced to pick 32nd, forced to pick 31st, forced to pick 30th. So by the time you get through the top 50 players in the draft, Brett Veach has had one pick. So you have the top 50 players as roughly agreed on by NFL scouts. That's how most of the first 2 rounds goes. The top 50 players are gone by the time Brett Veach gets a second pick. That is incredible. This, for the weapons to be interchangeable, is certainly a credit to Patrick Mahomes. He is able to elevate all of the players around him, but they also have a very low washout rate of draft picks. Were it not for this organization drafting so well, signing value-level free agents, Justin Watsons of the world, who simply comes up whenever his number is called. Juju Smith-Schuster's of the world, who is elevated by Patrick Mahomes, but not in the New England Patriots organization, and still is able to come to the Kansas City Chiefs on a cheap contract and contribute. Both of those things have to happen in tandem, also in tandem with great draft classes, in order for the Kansas City Chiefs to keep winning at this level. It is shortly after the Super Bowl, whether they win or lose. I have some videos planned to go over the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs are not supposed to make the playoffs next year. There's one team in history, and you know who it is, that has been to the playoffs more consecutive seasons than have the Kansas City Chiefs. It's the New England Patriots. The Kansas City Chiefs have been 10 consecutive seasons, have been to the playoffs 10 consecutive years. The NFL record for consecutive seasons making the postseason is the New England Patriots. Do you know how many? 11. Should the Kansas City Chiefs be in the playoffs next year, no matter what happens, all they have to do is make the dance. Should the Kansas City Chiefs find themselves in the playoffs next season, they will tie the record for consecutive seasons in the playoffs set by the greatest dynasty the sport has ever seen. For now, should the Kansas City Chiefs win a third consecutive Super Bowl, I think that this run by the team has every right to claim greatest dynasty of all time, regardless of the fact that it has not quite lasted the 20 years that the Patriots dynasty did. Should the Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl and make the playoffs next year, I don't think that there is any argument anymore at that point. I don't think that there is any chance that any other team can claim to be the greatest dynasty of all time. But that's just me. The number 5 item on the list from Cody, they control the ball. Much like the Eagles, who advanced as NFC champions thanks in large part to their positive turnover differential, the Chiefs simply don't cough up the ball very often. That's a credit to Mahomes, whose take note of this, whose fumble against Buffalo on Sunday was marked his first turnover since mid-November, but also the coaching staff that instills and gets proper execution of the fundamentals of ball security. So, I'm going to make the same point again, because we have to make the same point again, because Andy Reid is a genius for being able to get a team to peak at the right time. P-E-A-K, at the right time. Mahomes, whose fumble against Buffalo on Sunday marked his first turnover since mid-November, okay? Which would suggest that the Kansas City Chiefs were one of the greatest teams in the NFL this season as far as turnover differential is concerned. Wrong. On the season, the Chiefs were tied for 10th with a turnover differential of +6. Buffalo, the team that the Kansas City Chiefs just beat, by the way, was number 1 with a turnover differential of +24. But here's the difference. To have ended the season with a turnover differential of +6, and that fumble versus the Buffalo Bills was their first turnover since mid-November, this team turned things around in season. Remember all of those early season picks by Patrick Mahomes. Why did he throw those interceptions? Is it possible that he was seeing what would work? And as the season wore on, as they neared the postseason and indeed entered the playoffs, it became an entirely different story. Patrick Mahomes cut down on the loosey-goosey play. Was he throwing all of those interceptions on purpose? No, I'm not claiming that. What I'm saying is there are times earlier in the season when Mahomes is going to be able to say, okay, I'm going to throw it up there and we're going to see what happens. We're going to see if he can make these kinds of plays. We're going to see if Xavier Worthy can make this kind of catch. And once the postseason comes, he knows which throws are too risky and which are not. Because week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, these are not the goal for the Kansas City Chiefs. The goal for the Kansas City Chiefs is to have all of the stuff ironed out in weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4 that they can, so that they're playing in week 20. So that they're playing in week 21, so that they are hoisting a Lombardi trophy by the end of the live-long season. Number 7 on this list, Xavier Worthy is an emergent big play threat. We mentioned earlier that part of the Chiefs' offensive appeal is the fact that so many different players handle the ball once it leaves Mahomes' hand. Pause. But Worthy, the high-speed rookie, is really coming into his own as a breakaway threat, leading all Kansas City options in yards per catch, 439. Okay, so he didn't have 439 yards per catch, but he does have a decent receiving average and a good, let's see if I can get these on the same page. Give me just a second. Yes, a good rushing total on the season as well. On the season, he has 98 targets, 59 receptions. That is a catch rate of 60.2. Not the greatest catch rate in the world, but certainly, I think, better than what you were expecting for a guy who runs a 4.21 40 in his first year in the NFL, in his first year in an Andy Reid offense, a guy who was criticized very heavily coming out of college for drops. He has 10.8 yards per reception, not as high as I think we were hoping, maybe expecting. But when you add in the fact that he has 6 touchdowns and 36 first downs, it is speaking to the utility that Xavier Worthy has shown on the roster. That 638 yards total is a little bit of a misnomer. There were several times during the season where Xavier Worthy was wide open downfield and simply could not get one of his feet down in bounds. Now, those things will turn around. Xavier Worthy will learn from those things. He has learned in part from those things, and in consecutive weeks, in consecutive playoff games, he has made a Spider-Man-like reception. I kind of like the nickname of Spider-Man for Xavier Worthy because he's kind of wiry. The way that Spider-Man was mostly always drawn. There was a couple iterations of Spider-Man where he was hulking, but if he's able to make those catches, to elevate in the way that he does and make those catches, I think Spider-Man would be a fitting nickname for Xavier Worthy. Though X-Man is so good as well, maybe we'll just call him Mr. Marvel. But adding to those statistics there is the fact that he carried the ball 20 times on the season as well, adding 104 yards that way for a 5.2 yard average and 3 touchdowns. Xavier Worthy scored 9 touchdowns in his rookie season. I think that would be above what I would have guessed if I were projecting what Xavier Worthy would have done in his rookie season as a speedster. Speedsters are notorious for washout rate. Speedsters are notorious for finicky play on the field. Speedsters are notorious for not being dependable. When you look at a 10.8 yards per reception average for Xavier Worthy, this suggests that he was not just a speedster. When you look at the fact that he had 20 carries for 104 yards and 3 touchdowns, it suggests that Xavier Worthy was a dependable portion of the Chiefs offense. 742 total yards and 9 touchdowns. And the final thing on this list here from our author, the other AFC powers just can't deliver. The Chiefs were 15-2 this regular season, but never quite felt like the most dominant contender of their conference. All right. Once the postseason got underway, it didn't matter, never does. The Bills got a valiant effort from Josh Allen on Sunday, but couldn't hold tight on D. Pause. And the Baltimore Ravens couldn't hold on to the ball after an MVP-worthy fall from Lamar Jackson. In the end, the conference still runs through Arrowhead. I am of the opinion that the 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL all reside in the AFC. Obviously, I think that Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL, but I would contend that Joe Burrow is probably number 2. I know that I would get a lot of argument in that assessment. I think Josh Allen is number 3. I think Lamar Jackson is number 4. I think that that's from my opinion. I can very easily see how you would have Lamar 2, Josh 3, Burrow 4. I can easily see how you would have Josh 2, Lamar 3, Burrow 4, Burrow 3, whatever you think. I tend to think that, and this is reflected in the numbers I'm about to present here, Lamar Jackson is, I think that the brand of football Lamar Jackson plays limits his team. And you can see that from the fact that he's 3-5 in the playoffs, and I think he has the most consistently good defense out of any of the players on this list. He's had a good defense except for this year, though they were coming into their own at the end of the season, his entire career in the NFL that I can remember. But Lamar is 3-5 in the playoffs. The worst of this bunch, but also not completely terrible, right? All you have to do is go to the middle of Peyton Manning's career and look at his playoff record. All you have to do is go to Dan Marino's playoff record, and you can see guys that are phenomenal quarterbacks that just kind of don't do well in the playoffs. He's 0-1 versus Mahomes. For some reason in my mind, I thought that this number was much bigger. I thought that they had played the Ravens like 3 times in the playoffs. For whatever reason, when I went back and checked, all I could find was the 0-1 status versus Mahomes in the playoffs. I guess I am putting too much weight in the regular season. Joe Burrow, for his part, is 5-2 in the playoffs. Those 5 wins tied for 30th all time. Not a huge number, but when you take into account the fact that Joe Burrow misses the playoffs every other season with the Bengals, winning 5 games and playing 7 of them is pretty impressive. For all of the hype around Joe Burrow, for all of the Burrow head talk, he's 1-1 versus Mahomes in the playoffs. Josh Allen, 7-6 in the playoffs. Josh Allen already tied for 23rd all-time in the playoffs, in the playoff win category. 23rd all-time. He's 0-4 versus Mahomes. So you can make the point that the other AFC powers just can't deliver. If you ask me, this list looks very different than that point. Lamar Jackson, I think, is a generational talent. Bad in the playoffs. Losing record in the playoffs, 3-5 in the playoffs. That's not great. I still think he's a generational talent. So how can I say this? Well, the 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL are in the AFC. They keep running into each other. They keep beating each other up. But one guy keeps beating all of them. And that is Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, with his 17-3 record in the playoffs, makes all of these players look like infants. 17-3. He has more wins than these 3 quarterbacks combined. These 3 quarterbacks combined have a record of 15-13. Patrick Mahomes is 17-3. These are 5 of the reasons that the Kansas City Chiefs are moving on to the Super Bowl for the 3rd consecutive season. That's all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week, and I hope to have you back for the next one.